Hey gang. Today what I'd like to do is to take a simple chord progression and show you four different scales and four different ways to produce different sounds if you're soloing. So if you find yourself stuck in a minor pentatonic rut or in something else, here are four different approaches to do that. We're going to cover the minor pentatonic / blues scale approach. We're going to cover using the Dorian Mode approach. We're going to cover the Mixolydian Mode, and we're going to cover the major pentatonic approach to it. All of those scales will give you slightly different or radically different sounds to the solos or the melodies that you'll be able to produce on this particular progression. The progression is really a simple one. It's just the following. So it's a bar of E, a bar of D, and a bar of A. All right. So let's get to the scales that we're going to look at. And by the way, I want to urge you to download the tab. I have all of these scales tabbed out in the 12th position. We're going to try and keep it to the 12th position, one position only, but realize that you can expand these scales all over the neck. Okay, but we're going to keep it here. So we're going to cover the minor pentatonic / blues scale first. So let's go over the scale itself, and then we'll do an example. Here's the scale itself, starting with the 12th fret on the 6th string. And coming down. All right, so that kind of has a bluesy feeling to it. Rock blues certainly uses the minor pentatonic all the time. The blues scale just simply adds one note to that as follows. All right, so that's the scale, and now let's do an example, and we'll show how it works with this backing track. Okay, so you can see very typical sort of rock sounds, and boy, is it ever hard to stay in one position. I always want to switch. But anyway, very typical rock sounds that you can get out of that scale. Okay, the next scale I want to cover is the E Dorian mode. Now the Dorian mode has a lot in common with the minor pentatonic. First of all, it shares all the same notes, but it adds a few others. So it does have a bluesy sound to it, kind of a dark sound to it, but it gives you a few more possibilities with extra notes in there. So the E Dorian mode is derived off of the second degree of the D major scale. Okay, so if you think about, hey, I want to play the same notes as the D major scale, but I want to play emphasizing the E chord or the E minor chord, all of those are going to be fine. Or that's a reasonable way of thinking about it. Let's take a look at what the scale looks like, shall we? Again, I want to urge you to download the tab. All right, here it is on the 12th fret, 6th string, starting there. So it adds two different notes. This one right here, the F sharp, and this one right here, the C sharp. All right. So again, let me come down on this one. So the F sharp and the C sharp, and that gives a number of possibilities, not only with the notes themselves, but with bends out of that. So for example, you can bend that F sharp up to the G, or the C sharp up to the D, and that's going to give a unique sound that the minor pentatonic and a blues scale just don't have. If you want to know a little bit more about the differences between that, I did a video a while back on the differences between Dorian and minor pentatonic. You can check that out up here. All right, but now let's give an example of it. All right, so as you can see, there's a lot of similarity with the blues scale, and it has kind of that bluesy flavor to it. And there's a lot of licks that you can get out of the Dorian that are like that in different positions even. So I urge you to try those out, like this. That kind of stuff. The next scale I want to cover is the Mixolydian Mode. Now the Mixolydian Mode, just like the Dorian Mode, is derived from a major scale, but not the second degree of a major scale, the fifth degree. So because it's derived off the fifth degree, it has a totally different sound. The E Mixolydian Mode is derived not from the D major scale, but from the A major scale, because if we play the A major scale, E is the fifth note of that. Okay? So let's take a look at the Mixolydian Mode. And again, I want to urge you to download the tab because it's going to be, clear as a bell when you look at that, even if you can't see my fingers right now. All right, but let's take a look at the E Mixolydian Mode, starting with the 12th fret, 6th string. So the Mixolydian Mode has more of a light feeling instead of the dark feeling that the Dorian Mode has. And as a result, you'll hear it more in country music, you'll hear it more in southern rock, and more upbeat sorts of songs. So just like the Dorian, the Mixolydian has a lot of 3-note per string licks as well. So, or 3-note per string lines as well. So just don't get out of hand, but it allows you to play in more hammer-on and pull-off fashion to pull off some speedier lines. The last scale that we're going to cover today is the E major pentatonic. Now, the major pentatonic is very much like the minor pentatonic in terms of its pattern, except it has a totally different feel to it. So one of the things that's easy enough to learn about the major pentatonic is that if you play it, if you take that minor pentatonic scale that we have up here, like in the 12th position right here, and you simply shift it down 3 frets. So from instead of starting on that, instead of ending up on this 15th, you go 15th, 14th, 13th, 12th, which happens to be an E, by the way, and play the same pattern, you're going to get the E major pentatonic scale. Okay, so that's an easy way to remember it. We'll start here now instead of on the 12th, but on the 9th. Again, I would urge you to download the tab. So if we start here on the 9th, so if you're thinking, hey, that's the same pattern, how can it produce a different sound? Listen to this. I'm going to put a drone note of just an E underneath it, and I'll play the minor pentatonic first, and then I'll play the major pentatonic. Okay, so here's the minor pentatonic. Definitely a bluesy sound. Now here's the major pentatonic. Definitely a happier sound. You can hear the major pentatonic all over the place in solos in stuff like the Allman Brothers. Allman Brothers use major pentatonics all the time. The solo to Lights from Neil Schon is mostly in D major pentatonic. So major pentatonics all over popular music. Let's take a look now, or at an example from our backing track. Okay, now we've done 4 different scales. We've done the minor pentatonic, we've done, and slash blues, we've done the Dorian mode, we've done the Mixolydian mode, and we've done the major pentatonic. Is that it? Well, of course not. There's a lot more possibilities that you can have. But what I want to submit to you is this. Don't think that you have to always stay within a single scale. You can combine scales, and often that gives a great effect. The aforementioned solo to Journey's Lights by Neil Schon, if you think about it, he starts out almost all in major pentatonic, but he just has a couple of lines out there in the back that are minor pentatonic, and it really gives an edge to the solo that it wouldn't normally have. And let me see if I can give an example of that with our backing track. So you see, combining various scales can give you an infinite number of possibilities to do this. Okay, well there you have it, folks. 1 progression, 4 scales, an infinite number of ways to produce different moods, different sounds, different grooves when you're playing with different musicians. So hopefully it opens up a lot of possibilities for you. And I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you on down the road.